What are the three biggest things that you think you've accomplished so far?
You know, I've had the great privilege of being in this spot where you carry things around in your heart for years and then you get to actually act on them. You know, I worked in skilled trades business for 35 years. And this year we got to pass the Governor's Investment in Vocational Education Act, which strengthens vocational and technical and agricultural education across the state. That was a major accomplishment from my perspective because it was something I cared about so much, and I think it'll change high school and outcomes and hope for kids. I worked in a reentry ministry, a reentry program for many, many years. We passed substantive change and created substantive change in criminal justice reform this year. It was step one of a long path toward criminal justice reform efforts. I think that was really important. And the economy of our state, you know, we created a budget and it was passed by the legislature to be fiscally responsible. We were named after that budget was passed last year as the best fiscally managed state in America. That's really important to Tennesseans because that environment is attractive to companies. It creates jobs. We have brought in 99 new companies into this state in the past year, 12,000 jobs, over $2 billion worth of investment. We have a very strong economy in this state, and I think the legislature and our office have worked together to make sure that we keep it moving in that direction.
And when you recruit business to the state of Tennessee, what do you see as the #1 selling point for the state?
You know, we're one of the lowest tax states in the country. So we don't have an income tax here. That's an unusual situation. We're per capita, one of the lowest tax states in the country. Per capita, per person in the state, we're one of the lowest debt per person states in the country. We have very little debt in this state. We have reserves in our budget. We have a surplus and we have reserves. So we have a savings account in Tennessee. That matters to companies because they know that we have financial stability. When you bring those all together, combine that together, it's a business-friendly environment that has a low regulatory, low regulatory environment, low tax environment, low debt environment. Those are all attractive to companies.
What is your biggest goal for next year?
You know, I want to remain steadfast to move forward in the things that impact Tennesseans' lives the most. People want opportunity for the next generation, whether it's their kids or the kids around them. That means we have to focus on education in a greater way. Our public schools, our public school teachers, our principals, they need support, and not just financial support, but they need innovative, creative approaches to improving our outcomes in our educational system. I look forward to working to accomplish that. Criminal justice reform has just begun. We do have a real challenge there, and we need that recidivism rate to lower. So there's a lot of work yet to be done. Our criminal justice task force just released their recommendations today that will result in legislation that will ultimately result in recidivism lowering. And we'll continue to work on economic development, whether it's in rural communities or our big cities. Job creation lifts people out of poverty, and it provides opportunity for those all across the state. So economic development is something that's really important. We do that in part by managing a budget in a fiscally responsible way. Really proud of the fact that Tennessee was named by U.S. News and World Report as the best fiscally managed state in America. That's important to us as a state. It allows us to invest in things like mental health, the opioid epidemic, criminal justice reform, the things that will ultimately change Tennesseans' lives.
Does political division at the national level hurt cooperation at the state level?
You know, I think there's a lot of politics at the national level that really doesn't play out very strongly here locally. We have an environment in our state, and I certainly want to add to that environment, or certainly try to strengthen an environment where people focus more on on what we agree upon than what we disagree, where we try to find common ground as we move forward in whether it's policy, legislation. I think we accomplish the most when we find common ground and move forward. That's my strategy, it's my approach, it's the way I want to govern, it's the way I work with legislators. I think when we do that, we can have an environment in Tennessee that's much less divisive and that's much more cooperative and that actually gets things done in a way that doesn't happen in a more divisive environment.
Is there a fellow Democrat or Republican governor that you bounce ideas off of?
You know, I actually have had the real privilege of getting to know a number of governors through, I'm a member of a Governors Association, and we meet regularly one with the other, and we have governors roundtables. We talk about challenges in each of our states and how each one of us addresses those. So actually I have had a lot of opportunity to talk to multiple governors around different issues. Each has their own unique challenges, but a lot of us share common challenges.
How would you describe the opioid crisis in in Tennessee right now?
You know, it is a tragedy, and it is an opportunity for us to turn the tide on what has been life-altering for so many families. It is clearly one of the greatest challenges we have in our state, but it's one that I think is it's really possible to turn the tide. And in some ways, we have begun to do that.
And what do you think will turn the tide maybe in 2020?
You know, I think it's a continuation of efforts between law enforcement, drug officials, and the mental health community. It is a continuation of those efforts, but a strengthening of them. It's looking at the programs that are working best and then investing more heavily, both in time and resources, toward those. And it's really a mental health and substance abuse issue, and we are working really hard with partners. It's just going to require partnership all over the state to do that.
We hear a lot about the opioid crisis, but would you say there's a reading crisis? A
reading crisis? We do not have the literacy rates that we need, absolutely. Our outcomes on reading readiness are not at all what they should be. So we have a real understanding that we've got to focus on early childhood education, from K through third grade in particular, and we have some efforts that we're excited about moving forward that are going to put an emphasis on literacy in our state.
What attainable gains do you think we can expect to see in the next couple of years?
Oh, I think we can move in literacy rates. I mean, it's fairly easy to measure those because we have every kid in classrooms and we have the opportunity to assess their literacy rates. So it'll be clear to us if we're making improvements. They'll be slow at first. I mean, we can't have this not going to turn around overnight, but so long as we're moving in the right direction, and we are, we need to accelerate that. And when we do, then we're going to have better outcomes.